All right, Orchard, good morning. Happy Sunday. If you haven't had your coffee, this first song should wake you up pretty good. It's called Jesus Freak. Separated, I cut myself clean from a past that comes back in my darkest of dreams. Been apprehended by a spiritual force and a grace that replaced all of me. I divorced. I saw a man with a tat on his big fat belly. It wiggled around like marmalade jelly. Took me a while to catch what it said, cause I had to match the rhythm of his belly with my head. Jesus saves is what he raved in a typical tattoo green. He stood on a box in the middle of the city and he claimed he had a dream. What will people think when they hear that I'm a Jesus freak? What will people do when they find out it's true? I don't really care if they label me a Jesus freak. There ain't no disguising the truth. No, there ain't no disguising the truth. No, I ain't into hiding the truth. Kamikaze, my death is gain. I've been marked by my maker, a peculiar display. The high and lofty, they see me as weak, but I won't live and die by the power they see. There was a man in the desert with naps on his head. The sand that he walked was awesome. His bed, the words that he spoke made the people assume wasn't too much left in the other room. With skins on his back and hair on his face, they thought it was strange why the locusts and Yankees and the Pharisees tripped when they heard him speak until the king took the head of his Jesus free. What will people think when they hear that I'm a Jesus freak? What will people do when they find out it's true? I don't really care if they label me a Jesus freak. There ain't no disguising the truth. Now what will people think when they hear that I'm a Jesus freak? What will people do when they find out it's true? I don't really care if they label me a Jesus freak. There ain't no disguising the truth. No, I ain't into hiding. People say I'm strange, 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 strange. People say I'm strange. Does that make me a stranger? That my best friend was born in a manger. People say I'm strange. Does that make me a stranger? That my best friend was born in a manger. They hear that I'm a Jesus freak. What will people do when they find out it's true? I don't really care if they label me a Jesus freak. There ain't no disguising the truth. Now what will people think when they hear that I'm a Jesus freak? What will people do when they find out it's true? I don't really care if they label me a Jesus freak. There ain't no disguising the truth. Now what will people think? What will people do? I don't really care, no. There ain't no disguising the truth. Jesus is the way. Woo!
Good morning, Orchard Insta family. My name is Lori, and I'd like to welcome you all here today. We're grateful that you have joined us, whether it's in person or online. Thank you for choosing to worship with us today. If you're a first-time visitor, we would like to extend a special welcome to you. We hope that you felt welcomed and loved from the minute that you walked through the doors. There are in the seat backs in front of you some visitor cards that we would appreciate you fill out with as little or as much information as you'd like. We're not going to show up we're not going to show up while you're still in your pajamas and bother you. We're just going to thank you for coming and keep you informed about what's happening here at the Orchard. Those cards can also be used for prayer requests. So if you could fill them out, either the visitor card or prayer request, the staff would love to pray over those, but you can drop them in the offering baskets as they come around in a few minutes. Here at the Orchard, our goal is to fulfill the 3 E's, which is we want everyone to encounter Jesus, experience transformation, and embrace everyone. And we hope that we have lived up to that today while you're worshiping with us. Now we have a few announcements. The student lock-in will take place. The middle school and high schoolers are going to be locked in here at the church on Saturday, the 27th, starting at 6 p.m. So parents, if you need a night off, and we're only giving you one night, that's all, from your teenager before the school year, sign them up. And then we also, on August the 10th at 7, we'll be hosting a family movie night. It is free for everyone. We're showing The Secret Life of Pets 2, and you can bring the whole family. And we're going to have popcorn and drinks, and it's going to be a great time. And that's all the announcements I have, so you can take a few minutes and greet your neighbor.
Y'all can stand and worship with us.
Sometimes on this journey, get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is weakness for your strength. My story isn't over, my story's just begun. There you won't find me, 'cause that's what my Father does. door swing wide. The dead come to the light. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Jericho walls are quaking, strongholds now are shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Whoa, lay your burdens down. Whoa, you're in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Whoa, you're in the Father's house. Whoa, lay your burdens down. Oh, you're in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Oh, you're in the Father's house. Woo!
All right, good morning, Orchard Church. How are we doing today? I can't hear you. Come on. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, good. My name is Elizabeth Powell, and I have been blessed to be a part of the Orchard staff team as the summer intern. So I just want to read you guys Luke 6:38. If you give, you will get. Your gift will return to you in full and overflowing measure, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more and running over. Whatever measure you give, large or small, will be used to measure what is given back to you. And these gifts don't always come in forms of money or physical wealth. But today, we are getting a message about Joseph and how God blessed Joseph in his faithfulness and took him out of his brokenness. Throughout this next song, there is a line that says, "I am held in the arms of a loving Father. I was lying in a pit, but I'm walking in the palace now. I was a beggar, now I live in the King's house." So I just want to say, give your talents and time, and you will overflow in abundance and blessedness. Thank you. In the King's house, because
Red was the blood that saved me. White was the light, pulled me from the dark. Gold was the crown you placed
upon my head to
show me who you are. Mercy and grace I've been embraced
like no other. I gave you my heart, you gave me a coat of many colors.
Many colors. Oh,
Sometimes your worst enemies turn out to be your brothers. I know you understand. I'm
was a beggar, now I live in the king's house. Because red was the blood that saved me, white was the light that pulled me from the dark, gold was the crown you placed on my head to show me who you are. Mercy and grace I've been embraced like no other. I gave you my heart, you gave me your coat of many colors. Many colors. I wear my coat everywhere I go. I wear my coat. I want the world to know. I wear my coat everywhere I go. I wear my coat. I want the world to know. I wear my coat everywhere I go. I wear my coat everywhere I go. I wear my coat everywhere I go. I wear my coat. I want the world to know. Red was the blood that saved me. White was the light that pulled me from the dark. Gold was the crown you placed on my head. You showed me who you are. Mercy and grace I've been embraced like no other. I gave you my heart, I gave me a coat, many colors. Many colors.
Hello. I am a little bit sick, so hopefully I don't fall over while I'm doing this. But in a minute, I'll have some Gen Z slang, and if you're really bored, just imagine Nick saying some of this Gen Z slang instead of me. So I am not usually the one up here every week, but our pastor Alex is out of town, so I am filling in for him today. Last week he wrapped up our David series. If you don't know me, my name is Brian, and I'm the youth pastor here at the Orchard, which means I get to work with our teenagers, a lot of whom aren't here today for some reason. I guess they hear me talk enough. So I started working here straight out of college, where I got a degree in physics, of all things, and have been here for a little over 2 years now. And there are a lot of things I could tell you about myself, but I will just hit you with some essential Brian trivia. One, according to my youngest sisters, I am afraid of sea turtles because of Finding Nemo. Two, green foods are yucky, and don't ask me about carrots because, come on, everyone knows orange is another shade of green. And three, okay, let's be real, 3 snippets are not going to cover the essential Brian trivia. There's a little too much there. It's hard to condense an entire person or an entire life into a few sentences. My entire life could be the plot of a TV show. In fact, even just the last 6 months could be the latest season. So if you aren't aware of this, in March of this year, March 13th, amidst a whole host of other things and stressors that were already going on, I had a seizure here at church during small groups with the youth. It traumatized like half my youth group. And if you didn't know, there's also a state law that says I am not allowed to drive anyone for 6 months, or I'm even not allowed to drive myself for 6 months after a seizure. And my neurologist has consistently recommended that I not be home alone for extended periods of time. And I live at home by myself. So, this was kind of the next big family emergency of the year. That was my water bottle. Wow, I just lost. And it certainly knocked some other dominoes along with it. And so as the dominoes continue to fall, it's sort of resulted in me quitting grad school, effectively becoming the fourth Braswell child, while they generously offer a temporary place for me to stay. To say it has been a turbulent time would be a massive understatement. Hopes have been dashed, things have been turned upside down, and I have had to settle into new routines, sometimes against my will. Regardless, I am sure that most of y'all have felt this way at some point or another, or maybe even right now. And this is because our lives can often feel like movies or TV shows. And before you start thinking I'm crazy, this is where I start to get into Gen Z slang, at least as much as I understand it. I think even my generation talks like this too, but we have a running joke about this. We talk about things in our life being filler episodes, where like nothing really happened, but we still had to have it. Events being character development, somebody being the main character or even a side character, or somebody has main character energy. Sometimes the reasoning people give for doing something crazy is that they're doing it, it's not on there. They're doing it for the plot, which is what, okay, never mind, whatever. And funny enough, whether you like it or not, life sometimes seems like movies or TV show. Yeah, see, for the plot, boom. Now it makes sense. And funny enough, so do some of these stories in the Bible. And I can't miss this plug because it's too easy. In fact, some of them actually are a TV show, which you can see with us Wednesday evenings when we watch The Chosen over the summer. We're wrapping up the Grow Group this week, I think. So, all right. I'm going to talk about the story of Joseph today. The story of Joseph takes place in Genesis 37, chapter 37 through chapter 50. So I'm not going to sit here and bark 13 chapters at you. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown with some great Gen Z slang thrown in the middle of this. This is our youth's favorite part of our Bible study lessons. So you probably know the general gist of Joseph's story, but to give you context, here's a brief rundown. Joseph, who is the favorite golden child of his father, decides, for some reason, to tell his older brothers of this dream where it's represented that they're all going to bow down to him. Now, I don't know why he decides to do this. I guess for the plot. The brothers dislike this dream because it makes them side characters, so they sell him into slavery for character development and tell their dad, Jacob, that he was torn apart by animals, giving his multicolored coat bloodied and torn as proof. And then Joseph is enslaved, and while enslaved, he's thrown in jail after being falsely accused of sleeping with his owner's wife. And then in jail, he meets some staff members who serve Pharaoh, and they also have dreams. And so then Joseph interprets those dreams, and they go as he predicted. So then Pharaoh has a dream. He's like, I'm going to go get this guy out of prison who read some dreams and interpret my dream. So Joseph interprets it, and it's right. So then Joseph is made second in command of Egypt for the plot, I guess. When Joseph is then shown by God there will be good years for 7 years and famine for 7 years, Joseph begins a governmental food bank for Egypt. And so when the famine hits, his brothers come to Egypt to buy grain, and Joseph is reunited with his father and his remorseful brothers. I don't know how that doesn't seem like the plot of a movie or a TV show. All hope is lost for Joseph. He's been completely stripped of anything and everything that he's ever known. It's the fall from grace. It's the catalyst that drives any intriguing plot. A problem has been created, and there's no clear, easy way to solve it. What's interesting, though, is that if you look closely, Joseph's life is a near-perfect parallel to the life of Jesus. Here are a few examples. First, Joseph had 12 brothers, and Jesus had 12 disciples. And then also, Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver into slavery, while Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver. So I guess Jesus was worth more than Joseph, but maybe that's just inflation. Joseph was innocently thrown into jail like Jesus, who was crucified innocently. When Joseph was in jail, there were two others with him, one of whom would later be saved and the other one condemned. When Jesus was on the cross, there's the two people on the cross, one of whom was saved and the other one lost. When Joseph came out of jail, he was exalted to sit at the right hand of Pharaoh, or the king, which is what we say will happen to Jesus when he was raised from the dead. And when Joseph arrived in Egypt, while he was second in command, all the trumpets would blow and everybody had to bow down to him, which is, again, what we say about Jesus when he would come back. I could go on, but perhaps the most important of all is that both Jesus and Joseph hold on to the hope that God has given them from the very beginning. Joseph doesn't give up, even after being put in slavery and then jail. Jesus doesn't give up his mission to sacrifice himself on the cross, no matter how many times in different ways people try to deter him or offer a means of escape. They both had a God-given vision of what was going to happen in their lives, a hope to cling to, even when things got crazy and things kept happening for the plot. And it's this idea of hope that I want to focus on for a minute. There's two really rather powerful quotes about hope I want to share with you. The first one, you can go ahead and laugh, comes from a video game I fell in love with in college. And will still dabble in from time to time nowadays, mostly for the story they tell and the characters I've come to love. For context, in 2018, Destiny was struggling a year into its release, so in a shocking move, they decided to make their next expansion centered around the unjust death of a beloved fan favorite character called Cayde 6. The number was a part of his name. I don't think I can describe him to you in a few sentences, but I just need you to understand that he's always been the favorite character of the franchise. It'd be like if they killed off Iron Man. Oh wait, they did that. Yeah, for the plot. So to not only kill him off, but make all the advertising for the expansion clear that he was being killed off was an extremely bold strategy for the developers, and somehow it worked. It made the stakes feel real again, and the story continued without the beloved Cayde 6 until a few months ago, when the final expansion of what they call the Light and Darkness saga in the Destiny universe was released. So to put this in perspective, this was like 10 years worth of stories from 2014 to 2024, which is a lot to wrap up. The previous year's storyline had fallen a little flat, so the developers once again made a bold decision to advertise through their promotional material that somehow Cayde 6 had returned for this epic conclusion. I guess maybe Iron Man will come back too. Probably not, I don't know. So naturally, this was very exciting, albeit confusing, and they explained this decision as something they felt necessary to create a satisfying conclusion, but they were not very vocal as to why. In other words, they were bringing him back for the plot. So throughout this campaign, this incarnation of Cayde has a lot more wisdom while still maintaining his wit and goofiness that made him one of the fanbase's favorites. And what came as a shock in the campaign was at the very end, with little to no warning, you had to watch Cayde 6 sacrifice his newfound life for your character's life. Somehow that death hurt just as much or even more than the first one. So I need you to all know all that. Well, I don't really do, but because about halfway through the storyline, Cayde says something to another character about how he doesn't really want to get in the false hope business. And his friend responds, "All hope is false if we let it die." That is a powerful sentiment, even for one to be coming from a video game, of all places. It's also not something I had ever really given much thought, but makes a ton of sense. In my own life, I often have a hard time hoping for something because, as Cayde says, I don't want to get involved in the false hope business. But the trouble is, if you give up hope, if you let it die, all the hope you have had before will have been for nothing, thereby making it become the false hope you were fearing from the beginning. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's the first quote about hope that I want to throw at you, is that all hope is false if we let it die. And the second one comes from one of my favorite TV shows, Ted Lasso, and you might have already heard this before. Alex might have even used it before. And it comes from the titular character himself. So Ted, an American football coach coaching a Premier League soccer team, learns of this phrase they have in England, it's the hope that kills you. And he doesn't like it. He's like, I hate this. So, and he ends up spinning the phrase around, and it's already on the screen, spinning the phrase around for a pregame speech to his team by saying that it's the lack of hope that kills you, going on to ask the all-important question, do you believe in miracles? Do you hear how eerily similar those two quotes sound? Without hope, we are lost. Hope is false if we let it die. If hope dies, we die. Just stick with the soccer context for a second. One of, if not the greatest soccer player of all time, Lionel Messi, in case you didn't know that already, started his career at Barcelona when he was 17 years old, and he ended up having to wait 18 years, so more than double of his lifespan at that point, to win football's ultimate prize, the World Cup, for his home country of Argentina when he was 35 at the end of his career. That is a crazy testament to perseverance and holding on to a hope. He'd won literally everything else there was for him to win, and yet he finally climbed this seemingly insurmountable mountain. So to come back to Bible stories and characters, because I'm not up here to talk about video games and TV shows and Messi, Joseph also has no idea why everything that's happening to him is happening to him. But he still is holding on to that hope. And so can you imagine how differently this story goes if he just gives up? Can you imagine where we would be if Jesus gave up? Jesus' life has to happen the way it does, and so does Joseph's life for the plot. In other words, everything that did happen in his life happened for a reason, even if it didn't seem like it at the time. Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery, the events that lead to Joseph ending up in jail, the workers' dreams that Joseph interprets in prison, the dreams of Pharaoh that he interprets. All of it leads to this moment where he is able to help keep thousands of people alive, including the last people he'd ever want to help, his jealous and traitorous brothers. So this keeps the nation of Israel alive throughout the years of famine, and this is what ends up tying the Israelites to Egypt initially, and eventually leads to the stories of Moses and the tales in Exodus. I mean, there's just this whole domino effect of like, if this doesn't go this way for Joseph, where does the rest of the story go? And in a similar fashion, the night I had that seizure, Lori, who if you don't know is a retired nurse, wasn't even supposed to be upstairs with the youth that night. I hadn't been going to split them up into small groups, but the girls were pushing to split up, and I kind of wanted them to split up, but whatever. And so I asked Lori last minute if she could come upstairs with us so I could split us into small groups. So she was in the room when it happened. It's a Hamilton reference, in case you didn't know. And I mean, not just Lori, but several other nurses or people who work with medical emergencies were all on the church campus at the time. If I had been sick at home or literally anywhere else, or it had happened 20 minutes later on my way home driving, something far worse could have happened. And yeah, initially it was something that sucked. It still kind of sucks. Not being able to drive or be home alone for 6 months is a major life shift. But in all actuality, I had so much going on at the time of the seizure that even though I didn't want to admit it, I needed a break. It forced me to stop. It forced me to think. It forced me to really process a lot of what I had so far just brushed aside, especially from what had happened the first 2.5 months of the year. It helped me decide to quit grad school. It helped me to process all that was going on in the background. And I remember people saying to me a month or two after it had happened that I was beginning to seem like a much happier person, a much better version of the Brian than they'd seen before. Some of that is the extra time I've had with grandparents, or with Lori's kids, or with the Durdens, or even conversation with whoever's driving me to and from work that day, or whatever youth event we're on. Whoa. Some of it is becoming a de facto Braswell for the several months. But when all of the crazy stuff started happening in February, I remember my counselor asking me, is there some part of you that feels like this is an answered prayer in a weird way? And he admitted that I probably wasn't ready to hear that. But it may have been true. Most importantly, the time had restored something in me, something I can only refer to as a hope. What I'm hoping for? I don't know. Truly, I don't. But for the first time in a long time, I had this belief that it wasn't in vain. I didn't know why the seizure happened. It was honestly just the next crisis of the year, from one to the next. But there was this strange part of me that believed there was a reason. Because the thing is, things don't just happen for the plot. They happen for a reason. We don't like to be reminded of this when we're still in the storm because it feels dismissive. Hindsight is 20/20, after all. So it's much easier to look back and say, oh, that's why that happened, than in the moment be like, oh, I'm sure this is happening for a reason. Just like how Joseph didn't fully know or understand what was going on throughout his life, we often don't understand why we're going through what we're going through. And that's okay. The thing is, our God is a fabulous storyteller. Movies, TV shows, books, even some video games, they're all ways to tell stories. People try to ask me a lot what my favorite movie is, or what my favorite TV show is, or book, or game, or music, or whatever. And honestly, the answer changes every day. I love How I Met Your Mother and Ted Lasso. I love Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Pirates of the Caribbean, and almost anything fancy or sci-fi. Really anything with a good plot, with a good, meaningful story, I can fall in love with. But truth be told, my favorite story is the one I am living right now, because God's writing it. I've got no idea what plot twists and characters will be introduced at any point. I have no control over what could or couldn't happen. Satan may have tried to hinder me with my seizure. He may have tried to hinder Christianity as a whole by dividing us more and more, but God's got a reason for everything that passes. And I know, again, that if you're here, stuck in the storm, dealing with the weight of everything going on, all the pressure on your shoulders, this is not what you want to hear. You don't want me to ask if in some weird way this crazy new thing feels like a long-awaited answered prayer. I know that because I've been where you're at. I am where you're at. And I know you don't want to hear that either. You want someone to listen, someone to hear you. You need something to break, something to give. It cannot be your heart. It cannot be your will. You're waiting for the sun to rise, even if it's the last road you take. I don't know what's going to happen in any of our lives. I don't know what is going to happen in the sphere of politics, both globally and nationally. And you know what? I'm not going to shy away from it. Our future as a church is in uncharted territory. We're limited with our options. Our fantasies are tight. We don't even know what the future holds within the larger church conference. We don't. You have no idea what the next several months or years will bring for you individually either. Some of you are entering new seasons of life, whether that's a new job, a new school, a new place to live. And you know what? It is terrifying. It is so terrifying, knowing that just so much is completely out of your control. But that is actually the best news ever. Because if you think the world is in chaos now, just imagine what it would be like if we were all truly in control of our own stories, in control of our every circumstance, in charge of our plots and storylines. God is the author of our stories, and it's important to share them with each other, even though it's scary. Joseph's story is one containing so many different messages of perseverance, hope, and things that seem too coincidental to just be coincidence. God loves coincidences. You don't believe me? Here's some more for me. March 13th, 2020 is widely considered as the day the entire world shut down for COVID. 4 years later, to the day, is the day I had that seizure. Cade 6, the video game character I referenced earlier, makes his return 6 years later in order to make that ultimate sacrifice once again. Joseph's story perfectly parallels the life of Jesus. As George Lucas once said, it's like poetry, it rhymes. Oh, come on, you didn't think you'd get through a sermon with me without a single Star Wars reference, did you? So I say to you, both individually and as a church, let God write your story. Relinquish control. It is not an easy thing to do, but I can promise you that you will never believe where God takes you in that journey. And Joseph tells his brothers in Genesis 50:20 that you planned something bad for me, but God produced something good from it in order to save the lives of many people, just as he's doing today. God means all things for good, even when you can't see it. Have some hope. It's not just for the plot, it's for a reason, and don't you ever lose that hope, because that's when it vanishes. Have hope for, if nothing else, the plot. God's got a beautiful story for this church. He's got a beautiful story for each and every one of us, whether we're in this room, next door, online, in another state, another country, or not even a part of this congregation. There is a spark of hope fighting in all of our veins, and we have to give all we know to make it light into flame. Because you know what? It's been the year the world is ending basically every year since 2012, and yet we're still here. That can't just be a coincidence. It may not work out in the way you think it will or in the way you hope it does, but it will all work out. Amen? Yeah, there's the word. I'm going to pray us out. Dear God, we thank you that you are in charge of our stories, and you write our futures, not just our futures, but all of the future of the universe. And we ask that you give us the ability to have hope in your plan and trust in you. Amen.
Would you please stand and sing with all your heart? You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you, our Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the voice of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom. Yours is the glory. Yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus.
I forgot I have to do a benediction. Yeah, have hope, if nothing else, for the plot. even though everything is not happening just for the plot. God has a beautiful story in store for all of you, and I hope you all know that over the course of this week. Go with whatever Alex says.